Primitive? He said primitive in the title? What an insult! I'm the political ferret, and nope, it's not an insult. Something is primitive if it isn't fancy. A hammer is a pretty primitive tool, and it's still the most important tool of our species. There are a lot of fancy tools that try to replace the hammer, but sometimes the primitive solution is also a handy one. This is also true for humans. If the chance given, humans will stay hunters and gatherers. And this works pretty well. Hunter and gatherer cultures need about 15 hours of light work to make it through. But they have of course a larger requirement for space. So if the density of humans increases because there are more of them around, some things are really hard to come by, and one of these things is water. So if your tribe moves from waterhole to waterhole for ages, everything is fine. But if at some point a tribe is already there at one of these holes and won't share, well, you might have a problem. What to do then? Well, the next best thing you can do is go back to one of your other waterholes, claim it before someone else can do it. But now you have to stay close and defend it, and this is possible if you start cultivating the land, which is in the first step an absurd amount of work, and it doesn't go much better, but you need less space. This will lead eventually to a better life after some 100 years, but from one generation's point of view, the jump away from primitive hunter-gatherer to agriculture was not really an improvement, it was a necessity. So, I watched lately a video about Dyson spheres or better Dyson swarms. For those who are not really into this fancy space stuff, the idea is in essence to build a hollow sphere around a star. That way you can harvest all the energy of the star. If you live inside of this sphere, that's a ludicrous amount of space. You can build this into a sphere or in a swarm of colonies, and I'm straying. I put a link in the description for those who like this stuff. The thing is, to achieve that, you have to dismantle planets, like Earth. And I won't go into details, but if we start building such a thing, and the funny fact is, we have already technology. We need for that, we have this technology already. It would change Earth forever. Even if we don't touch Earth, because, well, no light from the sun, this might influence Earth a bit, isn't it? What is the political dilemma? Well, the thing is, imagine a tribe that lives in a rainforest. Everything is fine, but the tribe needs, of course, way more space than an industrialized civilization would need. So the civilization guy comes over, builds a town, cultivates the ground, and tada, thousands more people can live on the same spot. It's absolutely the same story than we have seen in the beginning of the video, but this time this change doesn't come out of necessity, and it comes not out of the culture. It comes from outside. We have civilized the wild. Was it worth it? The same thing happened with the natives in America. The Europeans came around and argued that they could use the land more efficiently. So it is, of course, in the common interest to give those who make more out of the land, because everybody will benefit from that. But did they? I would argue that cultures have a right to not go ahead, to follow their own path, even if they are inferior in the eyes of another culture. That's an important thing to understand. I myself would love to see the resources of the world invested in ways to get to outer space. Give me the chance to migrate to another world and I will probably take it, or at least I would try to convince my wife, and I guess I would fail there. But anyways, I'm very pro-improvement, but I accept that not everybody shares my ideology. The guys in the rainforest might just want to live a life the way they do, and I think they have a right to do that. The same argument comes always up when some Islamophiles tell me how wonderful Islam is. Well, Islam is ultra-dogmatic with a hate against everything that is new. And does this mean, and this doesn't mean that Muslims don't love their new smartphones. It means that they, as an ideology, don't pursue the path that leads to new smartphones. It's not a priority. And to those of you who mean otherwise, show me two successful mobile phone manufacturers in a state that is run under Sharia law since more than 20 years. Have fun researching. I think this idea that Islam is just a little slower little brother of Christianity and will go the way Christianity went is pretty American. First, there is this reformed Christian notion that all religions are the same, they all pray to the same God, and we're just fighting about the name. It's bullshit. This only shows how little most of you know about religion, which is absolutely common within religion folks. Get the books, read them. Secondly, Christianity is tamed to a degree and shows now its positive side. Let's call it positive side. It behaves more or less like a tamed bear that always gets a club over the head if he misbehaves. We in Europe use this club a bit more often than the Americans, regarding Christianity at least, just as a side note. And I would use it way more often, just as another side note. Still, I'm cool with it. Parts of my family are pretty much into this stuff, and I'm fine with that because they don't try to burn me alive, because I don't care and I tell them that I don't care. And they don't care that I don't care. Everything is fine. However, the idea is that Islam will follow this path to enlightenment, and it won't. Islam is different. Get a copy of their book, read it. It's not the Bible. Ignore the suckers who say that you have to learn Latin to understand the Bible and Arabic to understand the Quran. Forget that. They just don't want you to read it and to understand it. And that's for a good reason. That's all. Get a copy, read it. Or accept that you don't understand it. Islam can't change because the books say so. Muhammad was the last prophet. There won't come any update, says the book. You can ignore some parts of him, yeah, of course. But if you do, you are, per Islamic definition, not a true Muslim anymore. And I don't want to go into more detail. So let's jump into conclusion. Is this a bad thing? Should they change? Does Islam have to be reformed? Should Islam be tamed like the Christian would be? And I would argue, no. No, they don't. But then we have to accept that our way of life, is incompatible with their way of life. You can't combine living in a forest with modern agriculture. You can't combine Salafism with modern human rights. You can't combine sushi with pizza. You can't mix all cultures. Which says absolutely nothing about the people. I would gladly send Hans Unterstinkler, who could be German and freshly converted to Islam, to Saudi Arabia, and they can send us a bunch of atheists, gays, and so on up, so people they don't like. As long as, of course, we interchange one for one. No problem there. Well, no problem besides the fact that one particular ideology has a rule that states that they have to conquer the world. And this is kind of a problem since over 1,000 years. My nation was long time a border region for the Osmanic power bloc. The Balkan was enslaved by them. I have a lot of friends from this region. They learned the chapter in school and it was called Living in Muslim Slavery. Since they are in the European Union, their children learn it under another topic, the common history with the Turks. Doesn't it sound nice? Way better than enslavement, which was the reality. I think that we have to accept that people want to live in different sets of lifestyles. You can't go to another place, bulldoze the woods and say, look, I brought you civilization, because they might don't like it. Do you understand that? Do you also understand that if someone comes to us with the intention of adapting our civilization to a different state because they think that's the common good, some of us might object? Come on, let us be different. Let us be different next to each other with respect for the different lifestyle. Accept that there are no mobile phones in the rainforest. And that's a good thing. Accept that in the West, there are no holy rules that really matter. That all of our rules can be discussed, can be updated, can be reformed, and can be changed. Each and every rule can be changed, and this is a good thing. Building a Dyson swarm would be the best way for us all, but most humans would reject it. We have to accept that. To build something that is more efficient or stable, you have to dismantle the less efficient and less stable. But it will cost you a lot. Ask yourself, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the price? And are we allowed to change our way of life so drastically, so dramatically, that our children can't go back and never have a chance to choose their own way? Sometimes you have to accept that your dream is another person's nightmare, and you have no right, even if you have the power, to force your dream upon others.